Go.
Hi, this is Chris once again with Who's at Your Table, Episode 4, Gaming in the Black. We uh we have our standard guest today. We have RK,
Hello.
Lee,
Greetings.
and we have our special guest Charles from Ebony Warrior Studios.
How you doing?
All right, and so today we're shifting our focus. The past few days we had some topics. We're bringing a special guest in to give us his perspective on cosplaying while black in our community, in the black nerd community. You want to give us a little bit about yourself, Charles?
Um, so I mean, just like how I got started,
Brief
or
bio. Yeah.
Yeah,
How did you
like
get started? In,
yeah. How'd you get started? When did you realize you were a black nerd?
oh
well,
man,
first of all, Chris, let's start with
that
this.
was.
What city did you grow up in?
I grew up in Lancaster, California.
Okay, so that's a West Coast feed. And
Yeah,
did you attend
so
college?
I grew up on the West Coast.
Hmm.
Yes, I went to college in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, very different experience than California, huh?
100% different.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in California?
It was California is very. I'd say it's a more fast-paced lifestyle than the South, and it's more fast-paced, but it's also more chill. Um, Everybody's a bit more laid back. California's got this vibe of. Let me rephrase that. The South, they're very nice, very cordial, and they like to keep their racism hidden, right? And it comes off like bless your heart, things like that. With
Bless your
California,
heart.
because it's a lot more
Oh, bless your heart.
California, it's a lot more diverse, and it's more of a melting pot, and that's what I miss about California. Just this seeing everyone, and not just feeling like I'm one black person, and see a white people.
Yeah.
Oof.
This is a safe space. I don't know. Just speak your heart, speak your mind. No one's going to judge you from your experiences here, because we probably all have similar
Oh, I feel you.
experiences.
Gotcha.
So when did you? Uh, so what was your first tabletop gaming? What was your first gaming experience? Was it tabletop? Was it video?
My very first gaming experience was I mean, do video games count?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
did you get into it?
That that technically would be it.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was a gamer before me. He was
Oh, that's
he
awesome.
would play um, he would play like the mature rated video games, and I wouldn't be allowed to play them. But when my mom was away, he would like let me and my brother play things like Gears of War and Halo. And
Oh,
I
that's cool.
first person shooters have always been my thing. That's how I got into gaming at first. Well, actually, no, I got into gaming back in the '90s. It was Mario. I had a Nintendo, but like hardcore Xbox gaming was Gears of War and Halo. Those were my first adult game.
Yeah.
I believe Halo opened up a lot of people's eyes to gaming.
And that was an
Yeah, no,
Xbox
definitely.
Yeah, I
exclusive.
mean, it
Especially,
was really like the first time using what do you call them? Both the analog sticks.
Yeah, dual
That
joystick.
was yeah, dual joysticks. Oh my gosh, I remember learning that. It was that was a learning curve.
Well, yeah. What's funny is I also have a little one at home, and it's so easy for him to pick up an Xbox controller and just go to town. Where from the N64 to the PlayStation, the original PlayStation had the dual analog sticks. but no one really programmed to use both of them in a lot of games. And then the Xbox is like, nope, this is your only choice. So,
Yep.
kids pick it up so quick. My wife still can't get it.
Now you're gonna rag out your wife.
Yeah, I mean,
No one's safe.
my
No,
son's
So then-
only one, but he's the same exact way.
When did you start cosplaying?
I started cosplaying in 2000. I mean, really hardcore cosplaying in 2010. This year was actually the 10th anniversary of Ebony Warrior Studios. But I got into cosplaying at first because I wanted to have these armors and weapons that I saw on movies and TV, but I didn't want to pay thousands of dollars for replicas, so I taught myself how to do it. And I mean, my biggest inspiration was Lord of the Rings, Weta Workshop. Their work is incredible, and I wanted to always have those armors and stuff like that. Lord of the Rings is my biggest inspiration.
So how much do you think that the Mandalorian copied you with their armor character in that show?
They didn't copy me at all because I have not been cosplaying. What is the boy crying for? I have not done a Star Wars cosplay in years, so I wouldn't be able to tell you would not be able to tell you how they stole anything from me.
That was a joke because they have an armor character who's totally that's all she does is sit around and make armor for the Mandalorians in the TV show. I don't know if you have you been watching The Mandalorian?
Oh my gosh, I watch it like religiously.
Yeah.
Religiously.
Yeah. So how do you think 3D printing has affected the cosplay industry?
It's really like I wouldn't say it has changed it too much. It's revolutionized a few things. It's much easier to make, 3D model a prop, make a replica, 3D printed replica, and then mold and cast that than it is, making it from scratch or like, what do you call it? Molding it out of clay yourself. It's a lot easier to do it on the computer and then print it.
Oh, okay.
All right, so you think it's made it more accessible to more cosplay people for armor pieces, and you can get more elaborate costumes out of it? That's what I was thinking the effect would have been.
Yeah. It makes it a whole lot easier for people to get into it because, I mean, there's still a learning curve when it comes to 3D printing.
Right.
But once you learn how to do that, there's websites with free files for pretty much everything, and you can find whatever you need and print it if you know how to do it.
Just go to town.
There's a lot. I would say there's a lot more finishing work when it comes to 3D printing, but it still opens the door for a whole lot of people.
So what when you first showed up in the cosplay scene, what was the reaction of the larger nerd community that you were involved in to you?
It was, I guess, there really aren't that many high level, I don't want to say high level, but like Black cosplayers who put out movie quality work. There's not a lot of people who do that. Maybe because not a lot of people have the time to do it, or not a lot of people have the same full on passion, things like that. But
is it financially demanding?
It was
also?
funny when it can be sometimes. When I first started, I was very much a budget builder. I was doing what I could with the materials that I had, and I was still able to make some pretty neat stuff. If you want to do bigger builds, of course, there's going to be more money involved.
Now, now I do have a question for you. You said we asked when you came out in the cosplay scene, and you mentioned there's not a lot of black cosplayers that make movie like quality props and stuff like that. Is that because most black cosplayers are vilified? You know, like I've read some of the comments that people post on your Instagram when you cosplay a traditionally white character and how nasty they can get. Do you think because there's a generalization that cosplays for white people and you can only cosplay black people if it's a black character, do you think that really puts a hindrance on the black community?
I think that's one of the many reasons. I mean, there's the fact that a lot of black people who are into cosplay are around that age, the college, high school age range, and a lot of them don't have money to build like that, or they don't have the time to do it. I mean, when you look at the wealth gap, wealth disparity between most black folks and white folks, the white folks got that disposable income. They got mom and dad's money that they can just throw away. Black folks don't do that. Most of us are, when it comes to college, we are out on our own, period. We don't have any fallback plan. So that lends itself to a lot of black cosplayers doing just very simple cosplays. A lot of them stay within the anime realm. And they don't do big, giant builds or anything like that because they don't have the time or the money to do it.
Oh, that is definitely
separate the larger culture that you're pulling your talent from the fact that black people have 1/8 the income of the average white household. So that has an effect on who they're able to build and the quality that they're able to build in the cosplay community also.
Right, because I mean, I could if there if there was no wealth gap, I could tell you right now that black cosplayers would be on par or above what these famous white cosplayers are doing. You could look at like Kamui cosplay and Mall cosplay. Pretty much every single big name cosplayer that you see out there is white because they have one, they get more recognition simply because they're white. Two, they have the money to do it, and they have the time.
Okay.
All
right. So,
would you say, because like you're saying now, if there wasn't that money gap, that there would be many more black cosplay artists out there. So, would you say that in your line and in the conventions that you've maybe gone to, competitions that you've maybe gone to, do you see a lot of black people who are interested in cosplay? Do you see a lot of people asking you like how you did this or how you did that? Do you sense a demand to want to get in cosplay by the black community?
Yes, very much so. I've had this discussion quite a few times before. There are so many black people who are afraid to get into it because they don't know if they'll be made fun of or they don't feel like they'll fit in. And then there's also the black folks who are just they feel like it's not they feel like they wouldn't fit into the cosplay community simply because they don't see anybody else that looks like them, right. On a high, doing things at such a high level. They don't feel like there's a place for them to go. You know what I mean? So white people can cosplay and they don't feel like they don't sit there and look for other white people. It's just going to happen. There are other white people. But as a black cosplayer, whenever I go to conventions or I go to, spaces like that, I'm constantly looking for other black folks because I'm more comfortable when I'm around other people that look like me.
So
because
that's one of the
just
things
how it
we
is.
brought up. We brought that up in the past where as war gamers, like me and Lee are war gamers too, right? As war
Right.
gamers, it's like I met Lee at a convention, 4,000 people. Look across, I saw a little black bald head because I'm taller than Lee. I'm like, holy shit, there's another black guy over there. You know what I mean? You're drawn to people that look like you, and the issue is in wargaming, there really isn't a representation of people that look like you. You know what I mean? So you don't see a lot of black people that go there because number one, the financial disparity, like we mentioned, the same as cosplaying, but you want to see other people, black bodies, playing the same games that you enjoy.
Right. And one of the things that I like to explain is that when it comes to, I have a lot of, random white people that'll come onto my posts when I talk about things like this, and they'll say, well, isn't that just, racist of you or segregation for you to just want to be around black people? No, it is not. Because one, white people, when you go to a convention, you're not ostracized because you're white. You're just accepted because
Yeah.
you're white. If you're a black cosplayer doing any character that is not traditionally black, white people automatically have this they want to say
Knee-jerk
stuff
reaction.
about how, knee-jerk reaction. They want to talk about, oh, so you're Black Batman. No, I'm just Batman. Why does my skin tone have to define my cosplay? And that's
True.
what they don't understand.
Yeah.
They want to you can't have it both ways. You white folks don't like being able to see through our eyes. It makes them uncomfortable.
Like my favorite quote to date is I saw this video and it was you have the privilege to learn about racism, but I have to live it every fucking day.
Yep.
Oh, that is so true. Yo, that is the most honest quote I've probably heard in a very long time. Bloody hell.
And
So something I was saying to the guys in our last podcast is the fact that in South Africa, um, cosplay hasn't become a big thing, not yet anyway, because obviously just the nerd culture alone in South Africa is still very niche. It's still very starting. If you want to see other nerds, you literally have to go to like, designated comic book stores. Otherwise, you just won't find them around. We don't have many conventions. I think we only have like one gaming convention, and we had our first Comic Con. I think it was called like Africon last year. So for a lot of people like myself that are maybe interested or looking to start getting into cosplay, what would you say is like the best method to start? Like, what would you say is the best way to, you know, get your foot into to maybe start learning and getting your take on it?
Honestly, the one of the easiest ways is to find other cosplayers of color and speak to them, because I can tell you that pretty much every single one is going to want to help you get started. We want to Black cosplayers want to see more Black cosplayers in their spaces. They want to see more Black cosplayers succeeding.
Okay.
I have a
Okay.
question for you. You talked about different levels of cosplay. Could you, number one, explain what those levels are, and at what level do you get to where you can earn a living, make money? What is the monetary compensation for it, and what level is that at?
I didn't necessarily mean it as levels, because that, really puts people in a box and makes it seem like they're, lower tiers of cosplay, and there aren't. Cosplay is cosplay. It doesn't matter if you bought your costume or you made it. Cosplay is cosplay. What I meant by that was, you know, when I say cosplayers who are up there, I mean cosplayers who are doing it for a living. That's what I mean.
Yes.
Cosplay. That's all I meant by that. I don't mean anybody's cosplay is better or worse. Because I can tell you right now, I know some cosplayers who don't get paid to cosplay who still do better work than a lot of those people who get paid to do it. So, what it really takes to get to that level, though, it's you have to be able to consistently put out a product that people are willing to, you know, to purchase. It's really hard to explain because you have to first build a fan base, and then you have to actually, you know, have consistent commissions and sales, and then it honestly is it's a scary thing to just, you know, make the jump over to solely doing commissions as your source of income. I was actually doing that before COVID hit, and it was, you know, it was working out. It was, at times it was scary, but then, you know, I'd get another commission that would come in, and I'd be like, okay, this is it's actually working. But then COVID was like, hold my beer.
Nothing is working in 2020.
Yeah,
No
Nope.
way. Mm.
you have to be able to diversify in 2020.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, no, 2020 just opened like up a whole new strategy of trying to figure out your own business and just yourself in general, I think.
So, have you
Yeah.
ever been requested to come to a convention and
Yes.
do cosplay? Because I know I don't know who the cosplayer is, but I've seen her at 2 conventions, and I know she's paid to go. I've seen her at a Dust convention in Arizona, and I've seen her at Adepticon playing different characters. She was playing the Fallout Nuka-Cola girl at the Adepticon convention. So a company hired her to dress up as Nuka-Cola girl and walk around. And then she was hired to play a character from Dust. Do you get requests to come to conventions and play characters?
Yes, I do. Um, I've been all over the United States, and I've been to Switzerland and Belgium.
Oh,
Well, tell us
okay,
about it. Do tell.
okay.
Don't, go ahead. You
Do
just flexed on us. Go ahead.
please.
Keep going.
Drop mic, walk away.
Yeah.
There's nothing to stunt on. It's just, you know, it's my passion, and being
Yeah.
able to get paid to dress, you know, to cosplay as characters that I love is just, I enjoy doing that. So the fact that there's even a market for that is just a blessing. Period.
So let's say
Oh,
I'm
man,
a
that's
I'm a
great.
young I'm a young cosplayer, and my 3D printing skills are off the hook. You know, I got characters, and so do I just talk to the people at conventions and try to plug in and build into a network? Is there an offline network outside the conventions that I plug into? Is there a guild of black cosplay union that I need to join? You know, how do you recommend,
No,
you know, somebody get in this and really go for the
I
gusto?
I started off
Uh,
I started off by making basically a cosplay resume, of my accomplishments, what I've done, uh, what I bring to the table, essentially. And then I started contacting conventions and letting them know, you know, what that cosplay resume was, and I am interested in being a guest at your convention. And it snowballed from there. I mean, that wasn't really the start. That was after I was on Cosplay Melee on TV. So after that, I already had some recognition from being on TV, and then I started, you know, sending out that cosplay resume,
Wait.
essentially.
Can you repeat that?
And
What was the
convention.
show that you were on?
Yeah,
Cosplay Melee.
Cosplay. I think I mentioned. Wasn't that on like Tech TV or something like that?
It was
what's
on
cosplay
Sci-Fi.
melee?
It was on what?
For those of us that do not live in America, what's cosplay melee?
Okay, so Cosplay Melee is I don't know if you've ever heard of the show Face Off, which is basically
makeup.
yeah, special effects makeup. They, you know, battle it out by doing characters and special effects and stuff like that. It's Cosplay Melee is the same thing, but with building cosplay armor and characters.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's
Like
pretty awesome.
RuPaul's Drag Race only for cosplayers.
Yeah,
Oh, damn!
he
That's so cool. You guys have all the best shows.
Apparently,
That's a-
RuPaul's Drag Races in South Africa for not cosplay Melee.
Well, yeah, we do
That's
have
actually
we
pretty
do have
funny.
RuPaul's Drag Race. We just don't have the cosplay thing.
Melee.
You know, the white girls get everything.
Yeah.
The white girls get everything, bro. I don't know what to tell you. They don't think for us nerds out here. They just don't. It's
So-
very sad.
I do have a topic that's a little bit more controversial since the George Floyd incident. How has people reacted to your cosplaying changed?
You don't have to call it an incident. You can call it a murder because
Yeah,
that man
sorry.
was straight up murdered.
And that's
He
the
was
truth.
he was murdered on live TV or on the internet. But yeah.
I think now, what was before, like people knew that I was and already knew I was a outspoken black cosplayer, black activist before that.
Unapologetically
But
black.
things really kicked up after George Floyd's death. And I had already, like, during that time period, I gained a lot more followers as well. And a lot of them were, acting brand new and like, well, I just came here for the cosplay. I didn't come here for the politics. And my thing is, my life is not politics. Me wanting to live and not be murdered simply because my skin is black is not politics. So if you have a problem with that, here's the door, and I hope to God it hits you on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, since then, the one positive in our community, there's a primarily black community called Muskegon Heights. It's 90% black. Their police force did a cleanup, and they fired all the bigoted racist cops. Fired them all. They took the chief out, who's a white guy, put a black chief in. The chief is actually a colonel in the army. And now 80% of their police force is black from the neighborhoods that
they have to police.
that they come from. So so they're policing their own neighborhood. And I feel like that makes sense to me.
Right. And I see that is partially a step in the right direction. But this is my thing. I don't care if the cop is black. You cannot fix a system that has been founded on racism.
Yes.
We have to dismantle this entire system and start over. Period. Because it's impossible. The best analogy is a house with a cracked, damaged foundation. You can build the most beautiful looking mansion on top of that foundation. It's still going to have problems, no matter how nice the house is above it. You have to go down to the core, tear down that foundation, and start from scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
agree with you.
totally agree with that. I completely and 100% agree with you on that point.
So in your life, your community, your cosplay, since George Floyd was murdered, you've seen a lot more people who are more outspoken towards you. And I guess have people been more aggressive towards you since then? Because you do make political statements, which are true, right? But you're still an activist and you're still very much for your people and black bodies. You're trying to uplift and point out the wrong that people do to the black community. Has that negatively impacted you as a cosplayer?
No, it does not negatively impact me. Losing followers is not negative for me. If you're going to unfollow me simply because I'm outspoken for black folks, because I want us to, be successful, be
Bye,
okay
Felicia.
I have I've never been the one to, be quiet because I'm afraid I'm going to lose followers. Oh no, please don't go. Before George Floyd was murdered, I had around 34,000 followers on Instagram. It went down to 30,000 after I had like subsequent like a month of subsequent posts just about Black Lives. It was no cosplay, just about Black Lives Matter. And I lost around 4,000 followers because of that. And I don't care. Bye bye.
Yeah,
Nah,
yeah.
it's
You don't
sad.
need that kind of negativity in your life. The question is more or less have well, right now there's no cons. You know what I mean? But
Right.
have people stopped reaching out to you?
No.
Because we talked
Because
about this.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say we talked about a while ago. Maybe you could weigh on this. Lee mentioned that there's a convention that had a black panel for cosplayers or whatever.
Origins this year.
Yeah.
So Origins this year, we were going to convene a panel around what could be done in the tabletop gaming community to make it more welcoming and inviting to, for people of color. And then we had some transgender people on there and women, right? And so
Right.
the panel got canceled at the last minute, and then people were like, well, why? And Eric Lang was going to moderate. He was like the head guy, right? He wrote like Rage and a bunch of other games that people know for Cool Mini or not. And so when people asked him why did it get canceled, he just had a picture of the board of directors of Origin, and it's all white men, every single one of them. There's not a single person of color or woman on that board. So the reason it got canceled because they don't want to have a difficult conversation and have things get pointed out that they have the power to change, like maybe diversifying your board, because they don't want to have to take responsibility for people being, being, what do I want to say? Not micro, like people, if I sit down and some guy's being rude or disingenuous or just the racist shit that goes on, right? Because they want to think that they're above it, but they're not. What they're doing by doing it the way they did it is that they are now enabling it to happen because people who are at the table aren't going to be aware of it, right? It's going to be just business as usual. If I'm a bigot and I can come out and say something about some girl's boobs, or I'm a sexist, or if I'm a homophobe, I can say it and get away with it because it hasn't been addressed at the level where the organizers have to deal with it, right? They don't have to deal with making everybody feel welcome. They just wanted to feel welcome for, white males, which is their representation, because they're represented, 100%. It's when you get down to people like an Eric Lang or any of the other people that come there that run games, that are part of the minority community, they want to pretend you don't exist, right? And I know this was about 5 years ago, maybe, where I saw an article about the New York Comic Con where the black cosplayers were shunned, and asked not to attend. I don't know have you heard about that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so there was an article, which I should probably pull up before I speak any more on it, that was written where the cosplayers said, hey, we were discriminated against. We weren't asked to participate in the contest. We weren't they were just being hostile towards the black cosplay group. And I'm like, really, in nerddom? You think if any place you're safe, it's around a bunch of other adults that like to dress up like comic book and cartoon characters. You would think that would be the safe space. And I would thought the same thing about being, a tabletop gamer. I was into the hobby aspect. I built model airplanes since I was 10 years old with my dad, and I played D&D since I was 8. And the nerd community around me has always been a very welcome community. But that's because I was the only black person. Now you add 3 black people to the group, then it becomes uncomfortable, right? As long as you're the only one, if you're that special unicorn, then, your mileage may vary. But the minute you start getting 3 or more black people in a group together, then the dynamics change.
Yeah, I make that joke all the time. When I'm hanging out with other black cosplayers at conventions. I'm like, oh, no, 5's too many. They're going to think it's a riot or a mob.
You're plotting something. We got 5 of us in a room.
Oh man, have you felt that negative comeback in conventions?
Have I felt that negative comeback?
Yeah, no, like that
You know,
negativity of maybe not being asked to attend or maybe not being asked to compete at conventions
oh,
because of the color of your skin.
of course, yeah. I've been asked. I think one of the main ways that I've experienced it was photographers. A lot of photographers only prefer to shoot white people. They only prefer to shoot um, white female cosplayers, and um, they will literally go for a white cosplayer dressed as a character that a black person is also cosplaying, but better.
Ugh, wow.
Yeah.
Like actually, wow. Do you think there's any way? This is something else that I was also speaking towards the last time. Is that do you think there's any way to change that outlook? Do you think there's any way to make it better, or to are there any steps um, in making this kind of discrimination and just hate towards the black community, towards black cosplay, uh, to get better in any way?
Um, Really, the only way it's going to change is white people changing. That question is asked quite often, and it's funny because they always ask they always ask black people. So what needs to be done? What can we do? No, you need to ask yourself. You need to talk to your friends, talk to your white colleagues, and you guys need to change. It is not up to black people to fix the problems that you created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
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 solid.
a good point because we talked about it the other day. So there is a cosplay community and a con that is very accepting of black people, and it's YomaCon in Detroit. But because it's in a mostly black
Black
neighborhood,
City. Yeah.
you get a lot of black cosplayers, a lot of black. Most of the attendees there, it's probably a good half and half with black and white attendees. I've been going every year for the past few years, and you see a lot of diversity there, and I feel like it's really accepting compared to like Adepticon in Chicago, you know, or there's and I feel like it's one of those cons that if you're a black cosplayer, you kind of have to go to, especially if you're starting to cosplay, because it'll give you a little bit more of a comfortable side. The first time I ever cosplayed was 2 years ago at YomaCon, and I cosplayed as a Sith Lord, and that's some of my pictures in my Instagram because I went to Disney with my wife and I built a lightsaber, and I'm like, fucking hey, let's do it. You know what I mean? And I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Right.
I'm a bigger man, and it's hard for me to cosplay as characters that I'd like to cosplay as because I'm heavier. You know what I mean? Um, when I was younger, cool. I could have put on a set of Spartan armor, but I think for me, I'm just a little bit more embarrassed with my size to play those roles that I would enjoy playing.
Right.
So
Don't be embarrassed, Broken. You're a beautiful chocolate man. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed.
So-
Spread your wings, bro. Fly.
So, also, I wanted to change direction because we talked a lot about cosplay, but I also know you're outspoken a lot about the video game industry. And you mentioned the other day that Ubisoft is terrible representing black people in their games. And
Yes.
we had this conversation yesterday that the only time a protagonist of a game that is black that's represented is as a gangster, unless it's an RPG and you can create your own character. Have you been
Yep.
seeing the same kind of like ups and downs? Sorry, just
Yeah, I
downs.
have.
There's no ups.
No,
There's
like
no ups.
I have that. I have that conversation all the time with my friends. Like I'm so tired of the only black people I get to play in games are the role playing characters that I get to create myself. there's we very very rarely get any good black leads in video games. And then there's always the white folks who want to make excuses like, oh well, you have the Cal Kestis' mentor in the new Star Wars video game. That's still a side character. I'm sick and tired of black folks being the mentor side character.
And then you have
Miles. Sick and tired of it.
You have Miles Morales, but that's that's pretty much a DLC.
Miles Morales is just a DLC, bro. That's literally just a DLC.
Yeah, it's
that's
a DLC.
all it is.
A DLC.
Yeah,
they could have made an entire game for that guy, and they just made a DLC.
Yeah, because he has a very compelling story.
Yeah, and especially after the whole, and I think the reason why that Miles Morales game was even made was because of the success of Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse was such like an impactful film. It was probably one of the best animated films when it came out, and so obviously Sony and Sony and PlayStation are trying to feed off that, but just to make a DLC, a DLC, that's it. That's sad. That's really sad.
So the Ubisoft thing you mentioned, funny story. We played the Division 2 quite a bit, right? In the Division 2, after the George Floyd's killings, Ubisoft had put an update to try to colorize more of the NPCs, to give more ethnicity variation, because the only people that are black in the game are bad. You know what I mean? So they actually fucked up their coding, and you saw a bunch of white people walking around with black faces. So it was just a black face with white arms, white legs, with their uniform on. And I took some screenshots because I thought it was funny, because I'm like, there's Ubisoft trying to become multicultural again, even in the Assassin's Creed games. Have you seen Assassin's Creed game throughout all of history where the main character is a black man?
Yeah, I mean, the only ones are Freedom Cry, and I can't remember the name of the other one. You get to play. There's one where you play as a black woman, and there's one you play as Adewale, in Haiti.
Yeah, but those are mini Assassin's Creed games. They're not even
those
major
are the side games. Those aren't.
Yeah. Oh wait, yes, and they gave us Bayek, so we're not allowed to complain because we got one.
Yeah, but not as a major character.
Yeah, I mean,
wait, who's Bayek? No, but wasn't Bayek? Wait, Bayek was the wasn't he Indian?
No, Bayek is the main character for Origins. He's Egyptian.
Oh, yes. What? That doesn't count. Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of
That's more Arab than it is black.
The fuck out of here. I don't want to hear it. Bayek?
Hey,
make me fight you.
I'm not complaining. I will claim Bayek because, one, he got dark skin, and one of the facial hairs that you can choose for him, he actually looks like me, so I claim him.
Oh, there's another conversation we always have. Why is it in video games when you get to pick your own black person, you get the choice of afro, bald, and cornrows?
Of course. Of course.
See, I love that. I love that because these game studios can texturize a dragon's booty hole, but they only know 3 black hairstyles.
That's exactly it.
Like I saw something else like that where they were talking about Red Dead Redemption, right? And in Red Dead Redemption, they were talking about the vast detail of the horse. And the way, the vast detail of its anus and, the penis and everything.
Yep.
And then one guy commented, he's like, wow, but you can still only give me an afro. Really? Yep. Mm-hmm. Huh.
We will see if CD Projekt Red can get it right.
Oh, my God. I'm not.
I would. Yeah, considering nearly everything we've seen is just white characters upon white characters upon white characters.
Exactly. But I'm not gonna. They're supposed to have the most immersive character creator ever. You can even fucking change your dick.
Nope. I'll believe it when I see it because all I've seen so far is
just white characters upon white characters. Yep.
You know what?
That's all I see.
I might actually tweet at them and be like, "Yo, where are all the black people in your world? It's supposed to be a futuristic dystopian. Were they murdered?
Yeah, did we die?
Yeah, no,
What's going
we
on?
probably all died in the race war.
Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly
the
like I
Melanin
don't.
Wars. You died in the Melanin Wars.
The Melanin Wars.
The melon. Oh man, now that's probably what's good. But I'm not expecting CD Projekt Red, as incredible as that game is going to be. I'm not expecting anything to change in terms of like creating your race and fulfilling, what we've all been waiting for. I doubt that's gonna happen.
So
Yeah.
I highly doubt
one
it.
thing
named after Detroit, and there's hardly any black people in it. Like the main characters are
Yeah.
white.
Yeah,
Androids,
Detroit.
so.
Yeah.
Detroit Human. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Detroit Human.
So just saying.
Oh man.
But when they put a black,
to tell us something, guys. When
they put it in black,
the world
in a
ends,
game,
all the black people are gonna die.
Yeah.
Right? It's questionable in these post-apocalyptic games. It's just barely any black people. It's like, were we the cause? What's going on? Did we finally get mad? Did we finally just get pissed off and we're like, no, you know what? We're going to stop asking for forgiveness. We want revenge now.
You know what I want to see? I want to see a video game development studio that's primarily women and people of color come up and create a game with protagonists and a compelling story about people of color. But the problem is that it requires money to do that, and you're not going to see that in our time. Not while white people rule Wall Street.
Yeah, and it also requires black developers.
That's true, and that's in education.
I had this conversation the other morning. It requires black developers, and let me read you the post that I made this other morning because this is the things that I think about early in the morning when I'm checking on my 3D prints. I just got random ass thoughts.
I just want to let you know, I saw that Pelican. It's looking nice. Do you plan on making a mold of it?
I probably will, because I do not feel like reprinting this thing. It's massive.
Okay. Me and Lee, we have a friend that prints all of our prototype miniatures for the game that we're developing, that Lee's developing. And, you ever feel like sending over those STL files?
Bet.
So, because I'm a big Halo fan. I actually used to play Halo in a semi-professional scene in my state.
That's dope.
And when the original Xbox came out, I bitched to my parents because I wanted a GameCube. My older brothers wanted an Xbox.
That's exactly what happened with me. Seriously, I remember when my dad brought my PlayStation 2, I was so mad. I was like, so you just don't love me? Where's my Game Boy? I asked you for one thing, a Game Boy. What the hell is this? What the hell is this?
Exactly.
Oh, man.
They got me a game. They got me Halo, and that was my life.
All right. So let me read you this post that I made the other morning, because these are the things that I think about when I'm just having these random TED Talks in my head. I said, why don't gaming companies do more black leads in games? I thought about this one and went down a bit of a rabbit hole. So most gaming companies are located in major urban areas, and lots are concentrated in California. Most of these urban areas, just like Atlanta, continue to gentrify, which pushes black folks further and further away. California specifically is far too expensive for young people to live in without assistance. And when these cities gentrify, you know who moves in? Young, affluent, rich, white people. Many of them require unpaid internships, which a lot of black students cannot afford to do because they need a source of income due to surviving on their own. Black kids typically don't have the luxury of having mom and dad funds to fall back on, so they aren't able to take risks like that, which cuts them from the equation for out-of-state internships and job interviews, which many of the white students can jump on without an afterthought. The ability to fail and still be financially stable is not an option for most Black students because for many of us, there is no fallback plan. This all stems back to generational wealth and the everlasting effects of racism and slavery. So when you ask why don't games have Black leads in video games, remember that those stories require Black minds to bring those characters to life. Otherwise, you just end up with grading stereotypes. And many Black folks are not able to get those opportunities because financially they cannot afford the many inherent risks of striking out on their own like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true because you don't have a safety net.
That's
There's no safety net there for you.
That is the fucking truth, and I blame public education for part of that.
Well,
We had this conversation on this yesterday.
also you have to address the power structure that's embedded in that question, right? There's not like I created a company because my mindset is not make this white guy make the game that I want. It's I'll go out and make the game that I want and then try to sell it to Black people, get a lot of pushback from Black people because I'm Black and I'm doing it. So that's another side of that equation because we're educated in a system that teaches us white supremacy as the normal way of life, right? We go through an
Yep.
educational system, thank you Betsy DeVos, that that miseducates us as to what our value is and what our worth is, right? So the difference that we talked about this in the last podcast is when I went to a Black school, I was trained to get a job, go to work for GM, Ford, or Chrysler in Detroit. Whereas when I was in Florida, I was being trained to own a business. And those are two very different conversations that you're having about what your worth is, what your value is, and how you think about pursuing life, right? And I think
Right.
that a lot of us are happy to go get a job, but we don't think about, well, how do I own the factory that produces the thing that I want? Whereas you've created your own ecosystem around, you're your own factory. You create cosplay that then other people consume, right? Whereas most
Right.
people sit at home and then they'll consume the cosplay people and not think about how to monetize it in a way that it benefits them by following something they may love and desire. They take a lesser path of comfort and security, right? Because they've lived so long with being uncomfortable and insecure, whether that's monetary, whether that's food, whether that's socially, right? And so we can't divorce ourselves from that larger conversation around a culture of systemic white supremacy and one that we also perpetuate and are born into. And some of
Yep.
us learn to break free from it and do the things that we want to do, but we can't not have this conversation about it without understanding its effect on the larger community. And that's why I'm like having this conversation across the diaspora, with people of Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, straight up African to my brothers down in South Africa, and Afro-Asian. I think that we will find a lot of the same experiences because we have exported that racism and internalized it. What do you think about
Mm-hmm.
that?
100%.
what
Just
what
two
motivated
thoughts I
you
had.
to yeah, just a quick question from my side. What motivated you to start Ebony Warrior Studio?
It was representation. Because I had this incredible experience with this. I was at Dragon Con. I was wearing my Batman, and I had this encounter with this little boy there who was with his mom. I was walking around outside the main hotel at Dragon Con, and this little boy was wearing like one of those Party City type costumes, like a black and yellow Batman costume.
Yeah.
Michael
And
Keaton era.
he saw me from a distance. And I just saw him getting so excited, pointing at me, pulling on his mom's hand, and then pointing at his skin. I
Oh
got
wow.
up to I got up to him, and knelt down to speak with him. And when I'm in my Batman cosplay, like I don't break character and I don't take out or take off my cowl.
Yeah.
But I took my cowl off to talk to this little boy, and he looked at me and he said, "Batman, you're brown just like me. Does that mean I can be a superhero one day too?"
Wow.
And I lost it. I lost it.
Crying real tears there.
I fucking lost it.
That's a place where your feelings
Like-
come from, right?
Yo. Wow.
Like I could not. That was what really did it for me. That was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had. Knowing that, you know, there are kids who don't see themselves in media portrayed as these heroes, and they want to see themselves as a hero. And they can do all the imagining that they want, but they want to see themselves in a film. You know, they don't want to. They love characters like Falcon and what's his name,
Black
Iron
Panther.
Patriot. Yeah.
Iron Patriot
Well,
as well,
they don't want to see themselves as side characters. They want to see themselves as a main character.
Like a
And
Black
that's
Lightning.
why. Yeah, that's why something like Black Panther, an entire movie literally dedicated to Black folks, that's why it grossed billions, because
of
Black
dollars.
folks were we were ready to see ourselves in that superhero light. We were also ready to see what we could have become if slavery and colonialism had not interfered with our lives in Africa.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. And I was actually having the same conversation. I was having a conversation with Broken about like a week ago. Broken, I don't know if you remember this, but we were just talking about the fact of, you know, how the UK and how Britain obviously invaded like other countries and you know took what they had and everything like that. And you know, Broken made this point of like why did they move up so fast? Why did technology grow so fast? And I was like, no. They stole everything. And you must remember that the fact is, like, they the ones that decided they wanted to fuck with us. Everybody else was just minding their own damn business. We were just chilling. We were just enjoying our countries, having a good time, not trying to invade other people, not trying to harass other people. We were just doing us. And they woke up one day like, no, we want that. We're going to go take that. And that's the problem.
And people don't understand that innovation and invention comes on its own. And if you look throughout history, anytime you've seen these major booms in invention and in innovation,
Black people.
And it's also been because white people wanted to conquer. So they started inventing new ways to kill, new ways to conquer.
So the funny thing is, you are right. A lot of the wars, a lot of war in wanting to conquer has driven innovation in the war industry in medicine. But most of the big innovations in the world are because of Black people. But we don't get that clout. You get a Black inventor, and then a white person buys that idea or steals that idea and says it's their idea.
Exactly.
It just
isn't it the most fun? It's just so much fun having your ideas just stolen.
So
it's great.
Do you think gentrification is a type of conquerism? It's taking back territory.
Hell yes.
Taking back territory and claiming it yours. They're gentrifying downtown Michigan right now. And it's ridiculous.
Especially here in Atlanta. Atlanta, I love Atlanta so much. And Atlanta is a Black city. But it is literally being taken over. What is blowing my mind is that every single housing development that they're building in Atlanta is a luxury apartment complex. They're not building any more affordable housing. They were actually talking about this on the news. No more affordable housing. It's all luxury apartments. They're pushing all the black folks out.
Yep. In my area, they're
Man,
building condos and high-end housing, and it's ridiculous. 2 blocks down is where black people live. 2 blocks up, your house is, you're paying $2,000 a month for rent.
Yep.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because I just read an article 2 weeks ago about a couple that was trying to sell their house, and it was a mixed race couple. And so when the appraisers came through, they did the first one. It was the husband and wife, and they had the pictures up, right? The house was all cleaned and staged. And then the second appraiser came through, they just had the black woman in the house. And when the third appraiser came through, they just had, they took away everything that was black. So it was just a picture of the white guy, just, and when it was both of them, it got praised higher than it was just the black woman by herself, right? So the experiment was, do they appraise the house based on knowing who owns the house? So if you're black, your house gets appraised lower. If you're white, your house gets appraised higher because they were appraising the same exact house, right? And so, right. So again, it's institutionalized racism. It's racism that's built into the system of how things are appraised. If it's black owned or black operated, it's therefore less than, right? Unless a white person buys it and makes it a higher quality. We could talk about rock music with Chuck Berry over Elvis Presley, and even for my own experience, we could talk about the people who fought for this country and died for this country, but their contributions aren't considered as worthy, because they were all black units. Because in World War II, we fought against Nazism and fascism, but we did it with a segregated army. So let that sink in, right? So you have to attribute the contributions not to an American, we all went in there together as Americans. No, you had segregated units fighting, in the military, and then they put Southern white commanders in charge of black people because they felt that black people would
responded better.
Yeah,
Oh my
to being
God.
treated like shit,
Yeah.
which we know is not true. So when we look at the constructs that have been set up for us, we really, really, really have to think about what we as a people want to buy into. And then again, this goes back to the educational system, what we are taught, right? When I was in school, pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, carved America out of the wilderness. Slavery happened, and then we fought a civil war over it. 1865, black people are there, and then
they just came to
for a
help.
while. And then, Martin Luther King made a speech in 1965, and then we're gone again, right?
We just came there to help. No.
Yeah, black people just came to help. That's it.
And peace.
Oh man, that's brilliant.
Completely
We saw you guys were in trouble, so we wanted to lend our hands.
Yeah, but that's a conversation you can't have if Native Americans are in the room, right? Because they were already here, and they're the ones that built this country out of the wilderness that they were living in, right? Because the freeways and highways that we have were Indian trails that we built roads over. So they were already traversing the country. And you can't say that you pulled yourself out of the bootstraps and built the country because you did it on slave labor, right? Trillions of dollars were extracted from black bodies.
I mean, every single monument that stands around this country was built by slaves. The White House was built by slaves.
Yeah.
The Washington Monument was built by slaves. So I'm trying to figure out how you have this idea that white people did all this when they did not do a thing.
Because that's the story that they tell themselves in an education system that they've built for themselves, right?
I mean,
You know?
wild.
So when we have these conversations, we have to be aware of the source material, right? And the source material is not there to make you and me feel equal. It's there to make them feel better about the theft that has happened, and that's why you won't have a conversation anymore about reparations for the descendants of African slaves, even though the Democrats have won this, thing, and So one thing I know is that power concedes nothing without a demand, and that's on all levels. So we have to demand that the conventions be more open to hearing about changing things for the positive of all of the Gores, both white and black, right? Because you have a much better experience if you're not fucking tense about being there, right? Or,
Right.
second, we pull a Tyler Perry and we start creating our own conventions, our own blurred conventions, right? In major cities, in Detroit, in Atlanta, in DC, in LA, wherever black people are congregated, we should think about having a black blurred network, and then have each state, have their own representation, and then we go there and we spend our money with them, right? The same way we had to do when we had green books. I'm old enough to where I used to drive with my grandmother to Kentucky, back to the family farm, and she had a green book, right? That's not just something out of Lovecraft Country. That was a real deal that we had to use in my lifetime.
Can you explain what that is to people who don't know what green books are?
Yeah, so green books are a roadmap of safe places that you can travel as a black person. So inside the green book, they would say, there's a hotel in this city that you can stop at that allows you as a black person to sleep there, right? There's a gas station. This was in 1984 this happened to me. I went to Savannah, Georgia, and I stopped to get gas, and the guy would not sell me gas because I was black. I was in a this was 1988, and I was in a 1984 Volkswagen Rabbit. And I had to go down the street to a Howard Johnson's that was owned by an Indian family to buy gas. Now, you're really racist if you won't take my money, because everybody's money is green, right?
Right?
So the green book was a way to travel and know where you could stop at and not have to worry about being harassed, right?
Or lynched.
Or killed, straight up killed.
What you're proposing is we should make a green book or a digital green book of places to shop that support black.
We Buy Black is already created. So what we have to do is support those infrastructures that are already there, right?
And raise them up.
And
like we spoke about in our previous podcast. Black people need to support and raise other black people up.
Which is a segment of every podcast that we do, is at the end of it, we mention a black enterprise that we can support inside the nerd community. Besides Gaddis Gaming sponsoring the podcast, we want to also elevate other people who have businesses that contribute to the nerd community that we can spend our money at, that's not out of Nottingham, England.
That's not out of Nottingham.
Hey, I got a cousin that lives in Nottingham.
Yeah.
So we're coming.
He was a slave, but so what?
So we're coming to the end of. We're coming to the end of our segment here. Charles, I wanted to ask you: do you have a business or a recommendation or anything that is owned by black people, supported by black people, an anime, a book, something that represents people of color in a positive light you would like to mention for people to research?
Well, I have been, since George Floyd's death, every sale that I've made, half the proceeds have been going towards the organization Black Lives Matter. So I actually created a t-shirt line. I created this before George Floyd's death, but I created a social justice t-shirt line. It was a humor thing. So I have social justice necromancer. No, we aren't done talking yet. and things like that.
Where can we purchase
So-
these items?
They're actually linked on my Instagram, but it's storefrontier.com/Ebony Warrior Studios. And I've got, oh my goodness, so many t-shirt designs now. One of my favorites is Social Justice Boromir. One does not simply ignore racism.
One does not simply ignore racism. Yeah, that's a good one. I
One
like
does
it.
not
Okay, that's on my
simply
list.
ignore racism. That's brilliant.
One does not simply
Oh.
walk into Mordor. One does not simply ignore racism. I like it.
Yeah, but that's I mean, half the proceeds go to Black Lives Matter. We've actually raised over 1,500 this year alone since George Floyd's death.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go check that out. We appreciate having you on.
Yes, we do.
Once again, the
Yeah,
podcast.
it was a great pleasure speaking to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Much love, much love.
The podcast is supported by Gaddis Gaming. Check out their Kickstarter, Empire Falls. Thank you, RK, for coming back again.
Always love being here.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you for having me, as usual.
All right. And thank you for coming on, Charles. Don't forget to check out Ebony Warrior Studios on Instagram. Is there any other social media links that you want to drop?
You can find me on Instagram at Ebony Warrior Studios, Twitter at Ebony Warrior LLC, and you can find me at ebonywarriorstudios.com. I'm usually on Instagram. Twitter, I'm trying to do a little bit more. And I'm also on Reddit, trying to do a little bit more of the Reddit thing, but that's apparently where all the racists live. So
That's apparently. Oh man, it's a struggle everywhere.
Thank you for listening to our episode, Who's at Your Table? Episode 4, Gaming in the Black. Have a good night. You done recording, Lee?
Yeah.
I thought we had a very constructive conversation. Thank you for coming back on. If you're ever interested in joining us in a future episode, just reach out to us or we'll reach out to you.